ready for the Level Up Academy. Welcome to our Global Summit 2023. I have my dear sister Christine today to provide you with amazing information for educators. Hello, sister. Welcome and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and what you offer for us today.
Hi, Constance. I'm very excited to be here today. So, thank you very much for having me on. So, a little bit about myself. I've been teaching now for 30 plus years. And so, this is my 31st year teaching. And I enjoy teaching kindergarten students. I'm also on the teacher leadership team. And so, I have an effect over what happens in our building, as well as at a corporation level. We have our voice that can be heard at that level as well. And I also have other teachers that I help with coaching. So that's been exciting too. So I'm looking forward to this year coming up and impacting other students. And as well as I'm going to the next step, I have 4 publications that are going to be coming out in education this year.
That's exciting.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Yeah, this is amazing. So you've been I've an experienced educator and actually 3 decades. That's a long time. So you
Yes, it
definitely
is.
have like all the tools and strategies to provide for us today. I wanted to also preface that what you're doing is so amazing because not only you're doing it in your community, now you're branching out to help the world level up through your books. So that is so amazing. I wanted to ask this question today: how to create a positive mindset to reach your goals utilizing actionable steps.
So, first of all, your mindset basically is your foundation. So, we have to make sure that our mindset is correct. And if it is not functioning correctly, then we need to change it up. And sometimes that means for me changing it up every minute, sometimes every second. I'm like, nope, that's not the direction I need to go in. I need to change it. So when we take a look at talking about actionable steps, if our goal, let's say, is to exercise for 30 minutes, but you're like, I looked at my schedule, I just can't fit it in. So if you start off with 5 minutes, everybody has 5 minutes to spare. You go ahead and you do that every day for 5 minutes. And then the next week, you add another 5 minutes and then you do it for 10 minutes. And then you keep doing that. So then that way it's not as hard to fit in that 30 minutes. You can get it in by doing small actionable steps. So that's one of the things that I do. Plus, I was actually able to get in 10,000 steps in without working out and putting like an extra time in. So I just took longer routes to in the building. I did some music and movement with my students, which is great for engaging and developing rapport with them, and it's fun. So as they're moving around, I'm actually getting my workout on and I'm tightening up my abs and making sure that I'm getting the full benefit of that. So by the time my day is done too, I'm getting in about like 23 to a half an hour worth of exercise with my heart rate revving up too to show that I was exercising. So that's one tip and trick just to get it in. And then if you exercise in addition to that, that's a lot of physical movement.
I like that because as teachers, I've done K to 12 and you pretty much just sit down. Like that's all you like you can't do anything, right? And for those of us who are remote teachers, what are some of the positive mindset that we can get, especially when kids are just like being rowdy, they don't pay attention, they turn off their cameras, right?
Oh,
And not in the classroom. What are some of the tips that you would make sure that you're, especially if you're teaching little ones, to get their attention?
so that's interesting that you had said that because now I have to go back a couple of years because now that we're in person. So some of the tricks that I did are some of the same tricks I use in the classroom, which is setting up structure. So you set up the expectations. So I actually had a visual that they were to keep their camera on, they were to be engaged. I taught them what it looks like to be a student that's ready. So we went through what it should look like, that their eyes are on me, and then they would give me a thumbs up. That their bodies were still, they would give me a thumbs up. If they could hear, they would give me a thumbs up. So we were constantly doing check-ins. We also did check-ins on social and emotional. So when before they would log on, they would pick how they were feeling with their parents so we could take a quick look to see how they were functioning socially, emotionally, and then to do an additional check-in if we needed to do a check-in with our students. So that's just setting the foundation and setting up structure for the students to be successful.
I love that because little ones are like, everything is a game. It has to be a game because if you're like, don't move, don't breathe, don't do it, they're like, what? They're gonna do
What?
the opposite, you know. But that's what I did with my class. I actually there's a lot of study on TPR, total physical response, because I have some students who are on the spectrum where they have to keep bouncing, clicking, you know, and some
Mhm.
teachers, the old school way or traditional way, it's a no-no. Like you can't be, you know, fidgeting. But now, in order for them to concentrate, they actually had to
Yeah.
fidget or do. So
Mhm.
I asked their parents to buy a bouncy ball, and they can bounce while listening to me. And the other students looked at it at first, like, "Oh, we were playing." I'm like, "Sure, you could do a bouncy ball." They're like, "This is kind of tiring." And I'm like, well, just do like a fidget spinner, right? Or a squeeze ball while you're listening. And I said, okay, but I use the Pomodoro style, which is 25 minutes on me, 5 minutes on break, even for the little ones. And they actually work because, oh, I got 25 minutes to think instead of the whole hour. That's just so
They
much, right?
can't. No, they can't do that. So that was the other thing, is that, that brings up a good point about not having it very long. So I teach the very littles, and I had it only for about 15 minutes. So because they can't attend, and they're looking at on a screen. So then we would also look at how they were doing, if it was too much time or whatever. So we would do that, and then we would break it up into smaller increments. So we did a whole group. We actually did our testing and all of that all online. We did small groups. So we broke them up into small groups, and we did games and that kind of thing. Cause like you're saying, they can't sit and attend to a screen and just watch you. That just is not going to work. We sent home packets home. And so they did some instruction on their own, and we also had a time where they could check in. So if I was teaching, I had an aide. So they would go and log in with him, and they would say, "Hey, how do I do such and such?" And that way he could help them. Or if a parent had a question. So we always were available for our students to be able to access us and to make sure that we were taking them to the next step. So
That's
that's
amazing.
I love the idea of the bouncy ball and that kind of thing too. I think that's very helpful for
Yeah, because I
students
had some.
that are having a harder time attending it. They can still attend. And I'm sure you probably checked for understanding too, to make sure that even though they were bouncing, that they were still able to attend. And I think that's part that you mentioned is very important too,
Yeah, to check
that
in to make sure. Yeah.
well, they can, as long as they're able to do that, then who really cares how they're, if they're sitting crisscross, or if they're side sitting, or if they need to move, as long as they can tell you, "This is what we just did." And
Yeah,
if
and what
not,
I
then
usually do is I ask him first. I ask him, I'm like, "So, what do you think, Johnny?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." So and he will talk, and I'm like, "Okay, he gets it."
you get
And
it.
he knows that every single item that I do for 20 minutes, the first person that I ask is him. So he knows the whole thing. So he knows he
Yes,
has to pay attention because I always tell him, and I do have a conversation with him separate before the class, and said, "Hey, Johnny, I think you're such a good role model for your classmates." He was like 8 years old, okay,
uh-huh,
and he's not like he's older. And I
right,
said, "I think you're such a good role model for the class. I think that they would definitely benefit from you volunteering first to answer the question. What do you think? And you're like the superstar of the class for
yes.
this week." And he's like, "Yeah, I like that idea." And so, he loves that idea. So his mom and dad said that it changed his attitude. He's not frustrated anymore. Because in the classroom, the teachers wouldn't allow him to do bouncy balls. They want him to sit down, but because he can't sit still, he either fidgets or he writes. So it's
Yes.
a problem that teachers need to figure out.
It is a problem. I think allowing those fidgets and those kinds of things, as long as they're using them appropriately, and those types of things can help settle a student's body down, giving those heavy lifting breaks is what I also do, and giving them a purpose and giving them a purposeful break where like taking library books to the library, or we have our water fountains are still shut down, so that heavy lifting of carrying a water jug, I mean it's a pretty heavy jug, but they can handle it, or we could help them, taking it back and forth, but it gives them a job, it gives them a purpose, and it just helps calm down their whole system. So it's like a weighted vest, but without using the weighted vest.
Yeah, I like that. So teachers, you pay attention. And I love this quote that you have. Can you share a little bit about this quote?
Sure. So, how to create a positive mindset to reach your goals, utilizing actionable steps. No matter how you feel, get up, dress up, show up, and never give up, by Regina Brett. So, I think this to me spoke to me when I saw it, because when we present ourselves in the way that we our next step even, or the way we want to be perceived by others, it's very important that we dress the role, and that we get up even if we are tired. We get up with the same type of enthusiasm, because that is what we're going to end up being for that whole day. So if you if you're tired and run down, we don't want to act that way. We want to make sure that we're presenting ourselves in the best light. So I'm going to give you kind of an example. I found this early on when I was in college. So I used to go in because I was like, yay, I'm in college. I can wear sweatpants and I can kind of like kick back and, roll out of bed, put my hair up. And well, when I did that, I noticed that's exactly the results I got. I got mediocre grades because I wasn't putting forth the effort. So I was like, nope. And I was also taking later classes. So I was like, well, yeah, I can just sleep in. And then I'll work like until like 3 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know what I was thinking, but I was not setting myself up for success. I was setting myself up actually for failure. So I did an audit and I was like, nope, I got to change something. So what I did is I changed my mindset, and I decided that I was going to do my hair, take classes first thing in the morning, and sit up in the front row and raise my hand and participate. Just those things were enough of a shift that I ended up getting on the honor roll. So it wasn't because I was any smarter. It was just because I had thought was thinking differently. So because I learned that early on, I've also have done that within my education experience. So if I want to have more of a presence and have be more of an authority, then I'm not going to go and wear a whole lot of, t-shirts and that kind of thing. You're going to dress the part so you look professional. And so when you talk, people take you seriously.
I love that. My next question is how to organize your teaching to optimize your time and achieve a work life balance as a teacher.
So, I'm going to tell you, when I first started out, I was not very good with this. Um, I remember sitting in my classroom and looking at my classroom and just sitting there and trying to figure out, how am I going to get this classroom to look like a classroom, because it was a lot of stuff going on. And I remember going over to a classroom next door, and she had been teaching for a while. I'm like, how do you do this? Like, how do you get it ready so fast? And actually, she wasn't as fast as as I do it now. So but at that time, she was a lot faster than me. She got it done in a couple of weeks. So I would start to kind of watch and see what other people do. And the last few years, I've moved 14 times. So I've been teaching now for 30 plus years. I had a flood in my classroom and the start of the kindergarten day. I came into my classroom at 7 o'clock a.m. I started at 8 o'clock 8 a.m. and I had to figure out where I was moving to, how I was going to get all my materials upstairs and to teach. That year, I had over 30 students in one room that was not set up and they hadn't divided our classes yet. Okay, so believe it or not, I did it. I did it. So that was a huge boost in positive thinking and working on like a on the fly. Another time I was told that I had to move my classroom. Not only did I have to move my classroom, I had to move it that day and be ready for the next day. I did it. I had my bulletin boards. I mean, I was like tearing everything
Oh
apart,
my
getting it ready.
God.
I had help to move the furniture. I did do that. So I think each time that you have like those like fly by the seat of your pants kind of moments, the better you are at thinking smarter and not working as hard. So this last time I got my room ready in 4 hours. 4 hours for kindergarten.
Wow. Yeah,
That
that's
was yeah.
amazing.
Everything was put away, so I didn't have things out on the shelves or anything like that, and I asked if I could. They're like, "Oh, you better take anything down that you don't want to be thrown away." I'm like, "Nope, I don't want my things thrown away." So I took it all down and organized it. So how I was able to achieve it to be done in 4 hours, so you prioritize. What's the first thing? So I walked into my room, the tables, I don't know, this would have taken me 2 days. The tables were already set up the way that I had left them. I'm like, "Oh boy, I've got this knocked out." So I have things that go on rollers that I can go ahead and take things back and forth. I had all my anchor charts already done. They were clipped together for the whole for the beginning of the school year. Actually, for the rest of the year because I just went ahead and made it as I was teaching it. I have all of my things already photocopied for the whole year for tier 1, not tier 2 or tier 3 instruction, but my tier 1 instruction. So I make tweaks at the end of each one of those units. So it was just a matter of me taking that big cart and taking things off of my shelves for that first unit, and then I put them into the cart, and then I do a farmhouse theme. So when you do a farmhouse theme, everything is in bins. So I just stacked my bins and I put them on carts again and schlepped them across the room instead of carrying things. So I was able to get a lot done. So I put up my anchor charts. There was one bulletin board that I did not do. And it was for my secret stories. So anybody out there that knows anything about secret stories, that bulletin board takes a long time to do. So I could teach without having my secret stories up. But I used my work time, my teacher work time to get the rest done, which was that board, which took me another couple of hours to do, as well as my schedule because we weren't given our schedule yet. So those are just some of the things that I've done to try to
I love that.
maximize my time.
Yeah, I like that you organize first when you leave so that when you do come back, it's not so much like where's everything. And then part of it I think when you because you have to have banners and their student names and their, things for their sometimes it's high school, you have to have cell phone, covers, and if it's like their name tags, oh yeah, yeah, right? And then the whole classroom has to be organized where it's visible, but also like organized where they need to be. And that takes a
Right.
long time. So having that cart, that's a good idea. Thank you so much for stating that.
So
What about
another
this quote?
Wait, I have another tip too.
Sure.
So for organizing, so because we have a high turnover rate, I do numbers.
Mm,
So when we do the numbers, the new students slide into that spot. So I have numbers, for line order. I also have cubbies that have all of that. So I do like the little clips. And they have numbers on it and then they have their own bins. And so I can get all of that ready. That saved me tons of time. I do put their names on their lockers, but I have also waited now 2 weeks into the
mm,
school year to do their names because I have children that are being added. I have children that are being taken off my list. It levels out in 2 weeks. Why spend all that time and putting names up and then spelling them wrong because sometimes they're entered into the computer wrong too.
Mm.
So,
That's a good
yeah,
idea. Just wait a little bit until everything settles down, and then that's what I do
yeah,
with my students now who are adults. I have to take attendance, right? Yeah, it's necessary. So what I do is I put their names, but then I wait for, a couple of days to really enter them, and then I would have to erase that. So what I do is I put it in pencil now. So
mhm,
if I erase it, I just erase it with a pencil because I know it's gonna take
yes,
a whole 1 week to get it done. You know what I mean? To
right.
they're not in and out of classrooms. So great idea. Can you let us know about this quote? What is this quote?
Okay. So this quote is more of a philosophy. When it's obvious that the goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. Confucius. So keeping your eyes on the prize and making sure we've talked about SMART goals before and making sure that they're actionable. So I'm kind of a data nerd, I guess. I like to keep data and I like to see if things are working or not working, because if I do that, then I can catch things very early on and make adjustments as needed. So same thing goes with our goals. Just because you don't reach them doesn't mean that they're not good goals. So as long as it's still a good goal, as something that you want to obtain, then leave it. Just figure out how you need to structure it better to get to reach your goal. What do you think?
Yeah, that's true because sometimes we think that we need to adjust the goal because we didn't reach it. It's really that you did not put the effort or the thought behind that goal enough to use that SMART goal, right? You have to be very specific. It has to be measurable. It's
Yes.
actionable, right? All of the good things that you have to put in there to ensure that it's going to be success. And in the middle of that goal, you have to pivot sometimes, and that's okay
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's what I'm saying, adjust the action steps because
Mhm.
sometimes it's you plan and plan and plan and things change in life, especially if you have
Correct.
adversity added to that, right? Like
Yes.
my
Right, and sometimes we're like, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this too. Sometimes our goals are way up here. And so it takes a lot of time to get to those higher goals. So making sure that we have the proper steps in where we don't feel like we're not obtaining it, but making sure that we can obtain it and that we can see our progress towards that larger goal.
Yeah, and that's why I love a SMART goal because it has to
Yes.
be achievable. Like
Yes,
not
it
only
does have to
stretch,
be
not only
achievable.
specific, it has to be achievable,
Yes, it
right?
does.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure, and we don't want
Yes, you
that.
are.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Now, how to incorporate critical thinking skills into a student's social and emotional needs? That's pretty big, especially for kindergarten. How do you do that? I'm curious.
Okay, so at the kindergarten level, you're absolutely right. What I noticed is that first of all, we want to make sure that we are creating thinkers. We don't want children just to be able to regurgitate the information. So you're talking about teaching higher level critical thinking skills to kindergartners. It can be done. The social emotional aspects for children to be able to understand why they're doing what they're doing. It gives them confidence. We're creating leadership skills when we teach critical thinking skills. So my children know that they are problem solvers. How do we solve this? How do we solve the problem? So, what I noticed, and this took me 30 years to figure out, but I finally figured it out last year. So, this is actually in my book, Creating Harmony in a Classroom. So, I was watching students, and because I pay attention to their social emotional needs, when they were tattled, I could see their frustration. So I started to look at how they were feeling. And someone said I was doing such and such. And so they were upset. And I started to ask them a question. How are you going to fix it? They had no idea. So they didn't know. So they're coming to me to solve that problem. But we're thinking that sometimes that they're coming to us because they want to tattle or get somebody in trouble. Sometimes they just don't have those skills. So what I did is we started to talk about we are problem solvers. How do we solve the problem? When they approached it like that, I had them repeat it. We are problem solvers. How do we solve the problem? When we put children in charge, because it's a different frame, you did this, you did that. I'm a problem solver. So it uplifts them and puts them in a position where they are going to be helping working together as a team to solve that problem. So then I became a facilitator and I would listen to what they were saying. So they were like, "Oh, we need to be friends." So they weren't solving the problem. They knew the byproduct of what was going to be happening, but they didn't know how to figure it out. So, I think that part was huge. So then that's where I would step in and talk to them about their critical thinking skills and does that actually solve the problem? So they were thinking about that. They're like, no, that doesn't solve that problem. So then we had to go back to the drawing board. But it created another sense of a support system. And and when children had a hard time, you would see other children rallying around them and helping them solve the problem. So, I mean, I think that's a benefit of that.
I
Plus,
love that because I teach adults, right? And they
yeah,
have sometimes no critical thinking. They literally like, I think it's also because as adults, we have more ego to protect than children, right? They have a little bit of
yes.
that, but I think for children, they just want to be accepted. Like it's just social skills, right? And
Mhm.
so when we are adults, we're like, I have this and I have this, all these accolades. I don't
Yeah.
have to conform, right? And it's not about conformity, it's about working together as a collaborator.
Mhm.
And I think that you are setting them up for success in their future because now they're able to solve problems. They're able to have critical thinking. They're going to be more open to having conflict management in their
Mhm.
classroom. So there's so many benefits to that. And thank you for doing that because children actually starts from, I believe that from age 5 all the way to age 10, right? That is the critical moment that actually sets them up for the rest of their lives. The first 10
Mhm.
years of their lives actually sets them up. That's when people says, oh, you're disciplining your kid now at 13, that's going to be a problem. It's
Yes.
because you're supposed to discipline them at the very young age because it becomes a habit, right? And,
Mhm.
habits, it stays in there, and some of them becomes genetic, it seems like
Yes.
procrastination. Oh, my youngest daughter for sure. But at the same time, that is such an amazing way to do that. And before I put in the last quote that I see that you provided is, are you able to provide the listeners and the viewers right now of this summit some type of a workbook that they can actually use for their daily activities?
So, I have a couple of books out. So, I'll tell you the couple of books that we have out. So, I have a book that's a collaborative for parents, and it's with Kristen Norai. And so, we are developing a framework to it has a Venn diagram with it, and it is a scope and sequence. So if a parent tries X, Y, and Z, if that doesn't work, then they can try the next step. And it has places for them to record it. So that is one workbook that I have. The other one is creating harmony in a classroom that will be out hopefully in December, January-ish. And that has topics, educational topics, and it has there are things that they could take away right away. A quick goal, and then the other one is a long-term goal. So it's goal setting. S
That is amazing. But for this specific thing, do we
For
have a
this
PDF form?
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what you're talking about. So I didn't answer the question. So for this specific thing, so whoever is listening to this is what you're going to be getting. You're going to be getting creating harmony in a classroom. It was actually started out as professional development that I did through a company called SOS based out of Pennsylvania. And I ended up getting put on the excellent presenting list through this video, and it is talking about the skills that students need and teachers need to create harmony in the classroom and how to set our students up for success and to set them up with for diversity. The next thing that we are offering is a parent class. So whoever purchases this video will be able to get go into the class for that's free at this time. After this, it is not going to be free. So it's just free to the people that are watching this. And Kristen Norai and I will be doing this. So it's a tier one, a tier two, and a tier three parenting class. So, what I mean by that is tier one, that will be based off of the workbook. So, they'll want to get that workbook. So that way they have the tier one structure and we will be going through that. The tier two part of it will be that they could either attend a question answer session, or if they're like, well, gosh, I want to know more information about this part that you are offering, then they can go to like an upskilling part of the class. The third part is this is all through a teacher lens. So we're not doctors, we're not nutritionalists. This is through a teacher's lens. So we would offer them individualized program based off of their home needs and off of their child's needs so they can try that they can implement into their home to help their child.
That is so amazing. Well, thank you so much for helping us, leveling us through the whole world. And this actually helps teachers all over the world, not just in North America. And take us in and out with this quote.
Okay, so how to organize your teaching to optimize your time and achieve a work life balance. For every minute spent organizing, an hour is earned. So I talked about this earlier on and how I was able to set up my classroom very quickly. So when I am doing an activity, I am looking at it not only from this year, but to next year. So if I think that something needs to be tweaked, I don't wait till the next year and go, oh gosh, what did I do again? Oh, how did I organize? Because that takes time. So if you tweak it right then and there as it's fresh in your memory, then you can prepare for the next year. So that's one of the tips that I do. I have some units that I made the mistake and I waited too long to photocopy the unit, or I waited till the next year. And I literally had to spend like an hour trying to remember that scope and sequence. And if I like that scope and sequence or what I should have done. So, what I do, I photocopy it right after I teach it. So I know if I want to keep it or if I didn't want to keep it, and I do the editing process. Well, it's fresh in my mind. And that has saved me a large amount of time.
I love that. Thank you so much for your tip. And hopefully, you guys will see you on the live, right? And
Yes.
then we can party and then learn more about what Christine and Kristen Norai are doing for parents and teachers alike. Thank you guys. Have a nice
Thank
day.
you. Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye bye.